Waycross presents an election forum. Issue 23, a proposed tax levy renewal for the village of Greenhills. When voters go to the polls on November 4th, they will be asked to approve the following issue, which reads as follows. Issue 23, a renewal of a tax for the benefit of the village of Greenhills, County of Hamilton, Ohio, for the purpose of general construction, reconstruction, resurfacing, and repair of streets, roads, and bridges at a rate not exceeding 1 5/10 mils for each $1 of valuation, which amounts to 15 cents for each $100 of valuation for 5 years, commencing in 2014, first due in calendar year 2015. Hello, and welcome to this Waycross Election Forum for Issue 23. I'm Jason Grzgorek, Waycross Community Media's Government Access Coordinator, joined with Jenny Key from the Community Press. We're here to bring you the information for tonight's event. Joining us tonight for the levy will be David Moore, Mayor of Greenhills, as well as Yvonne Kovac, the Village Manager. Glad you can join us both this evening.
Thank you for having us.
We will be opening the phones and email to you here shortly, but first we will allow an opening statement from our guests. And Ms. Yvonne,
okay,
you will be first.
Thank you. And again, thanks for having us. We do want to just let the voters know, as you had said, we have our 1.5 mil road levy up for renewal. We renew this every 5 years, and it's been in place since the 1970s. So we have a good history with it and a good track record of road improvements that we do use the funding for. It is primarily for any expenses associated with the road maintenance, construction, resurfacing, repairs, as you were explaining before. That includes things like salt, equipment, anything that would be necessary to make repairs on those on our streets. So one of the biggest uses for it too is we use it for matching funds to allow us to do bigger projects like the Winton Road Phase 1, and soon we'll have a Phase 2 project. So that's it in a nutshell.
All right. Well, with that short opening statement, it's time to open it up to the voting audience at home. If you're watching tonight on September 30th, please join us. 825-3971 is our phone number. Live at waycross.org is our email. Rules of the road are very simple. 1, please be a resident of Greenhills. 2, you must give your name and address to our call handlers, but you will be identified only by your name and part of town. Thirdly, we only have a very short time to be with you tonight, so please make your precious question 15 seconds or less. And with that, I'm going to join the first question to Jenny Key, to our guests.
I wonder if you could walk the voters through the financial situation that you're in currently regarding why you decided a renewal versus an increase, and what will happen if this levy fails.
Okay, I'd be glad to. Again, we use this exclusively for road repairs. Just, generically, our government, as well as any, are feeling the pinch of resources vanishing. So any that we can hang on to, it's certainly necessary. In the case of our road levy, we actually have 5 sources that go into that. That amount is approximately $177,000 that we get annually. There are 2 sources from the state, a gas excise tax and a cents gallon tax. Together, those make up the largest source. Then this particular tax levy is a significant source right underneath those 2. Then we receive the Ohio Permissive Motor Vehicle License Tax and a portion of that from the county as well when folks do their license plates. That's why council is always good about stressing that they remember to make sure they're listed as being in Greenhills. So those are our sources. Again, the total dollar amount annually is $177, and if any portion of that, could have a great impact for us with everything that we have to do, and again, that opportunity to get matching funds, because we could never afford to do, for example, the Winton Road project. The first one was approximately like $400,000. The second one is in the $600,000 to $700,000 range. Our ability to leverage that money is just critical, and so it's a primary use for this.
Of course, looking at that Winton Road project, you're saying, that's such a large project to do. Other projects that you may be looking out in the future that will help by the passage of this renewal, where would you go past Phase 1 and Phase 2 of Winton Road? Obviously, that's the major corridor, but...
Right. Well, as far as other uses, and I'm pretty proud, and I know it was the same way when David was manager, that we pretty well have a rotation of areas that get addressed. So in the past 5 years since this was last approved, we've we were able to do a portion of Andover and Cromwell when the Waterworks was funding their project. We were able to pay the vendor to go ahead and do those streets in their entirety. Eswin Street was a big one for us, Jack Malloy Lane, between the community building and the pool and banquet hall. Farragut, a portion of Farragut. Again, we didn't have enough money to do the full width of Farragut, but we did have enough money to do half of Farragut, so that was the worst part. And then we had 2 large spaces on Japonica that needed to be fixed that we were able to do. We've also done probably a dozen catch basin repairs in that time. We always manage to have 2 or 3 of those a year, if not more. So I think we've stretched the money pretty good. And that too, then let's not leave out salt. Salt has been quite an expense, and that's getting even more expensive. We are going to more than double our cost for salt this coming year. So again, I think we accomplished a lot with this as a resource.
And I might add that
Sure.
we could always use more money, but realize that, we've taxed, I think, our residents as much as we can right now. But in the future, we may have to look at an increase. A lot of it depends on what happens with the state gasoline tax fees. As cars get better fuel economy, the amount of money you get from the state to take care of the roads is decreasing. People buy electric vehicles, they're not buying the fuel, and so it's all related to fuel usage. And 10 years down the road, we're probably looking at a serious problem all over the state unless the state does something to address the gasoline tax or the taxing methods for vehicles using the highways.
Jenny, I believe it's your turn.
It is. I'm wondering if you can kind of spell out the money that the levy raises, like how much money it produces to your budget in a year, and that proverbial $100,000 house out there. What is that person going to be paying? Obviously, it's going to be the same since it's a renewal, and I guess you want to stress to your voters that this isn't an increase in their taxes, it's kind of a continuation, but give them the numbers.
Correct. Again, they're estimating that it'll generate $36,000. Our actual has really been, so far this year, $31,000. So hopefully that will go up. 2013 was $34,000. 2011 and 2012 were both in the $29,000 range. So even though they're estimating 36, if the overall valuation of property in Greenhills goes down, we won't collect that amount. But we are certainly hoping for that. Again, because I guess I pretty well covered everything that we were able to accomplish with that.
Right.
It sounds small, but it's a critical piece of this puzzle.
Right. And your $100,000 homeowner is paying about what?
The auditor estimated that they would actually pay $18.21 per 100,000. So I'm not sure why that difference from the 1.5, but I was using their figure that they gave us.
Right.
And of course, when this was originally passed back in the 70s, $36,000 was a lot more money than what it is today.
Yeah, you don't get any kind of inflationary growth on levies, do you? Did they roll it back?
On new construction. So
Only
if the valuation increases on new construction, you would get a little bit more. But it's basically
So is this millage
for all
rolled
the
back?
houses. The effective rate goes down. The amount of money is still the same. So I didn't calculate out what the effective rate is, but it's probably like $500,000 roughly.
Of course, we've been very fortunate. We'll go back to a conversation we were having with salt. And we had a very lucky 2 years that it was very minimal and low. And of course, last year we got hit pretty hard, and people are estimating we're going to get hit again. Do you feel that there was enough savings from this, your salt intake from last year, to help and kind of balance things? Or are we looking at a little bit of troubled waters, shall we say, in the coming years?
Last year was actually a tough year in terms of quantity. We used a larger quantity than we had used for a couple of years, so that already took the price up for us. And again, our price, I don't think I mentioned it yet, that last year we were paying $45 a ton. This year we're going to be paying $104 a ton. So that's going to be significant for us. If we use what we used last year, we're probably going to be in the $90,000 to $100,000 range just for salt. So we're concerned. We're getting mixed messages in terms of will the deliveries be on time? Will there be enough? But we're just hoping that our supplier comes through for us at any cost so we can salt the streets.
Where do you keep your salt?
Where?
Yeah.
We have a salt barn by our service garage off of Spoils Lane.
You stole my question. Of course, looking at this being a levy that was originally, like we said, in the 70s, and we're kind of going into many later years, it has been a renewal. Has it ever been a thought to change any of the verbiage and no longer make it a renewal, but making it a brand new levy to increase funds to help the village?
Want to take that one?
Well,
Not since I-
actually, we did, I don't forget how many years ago, we considered it, but that was because the amount of money we were getting from the state had decreased, or was remaining flat, and then the state made a change in the gas tax in Ohio, and that was probably 20 years ago, something like that. And so that helped us out, and we decided just to stay with this levy at the same amount, and not to increase it any more than what it is. We had some general fund levies that we combined together. One time, I think we had 4 different general fund levies, and so we combined those and changed the rate at that time. But that's still been quite a few years ago.
All right. What's the biggest concern that you hear from Greenhills residents about the streets and roads in the village? And will this levy help you address that?
I'll take that one.
Yeah.
I think I hear the most about potholes in the winter and salt. And salt creates those potholes, but it's something we have to do. But yeah, potholes probably.
Yeah, we always used to joke that it would be wonderful if somebody could invent some way to spread asphalt in the winter to fix the snow. Since salt's way more expensive than asphalt now.
If by chance this
That's
renewal,
interesting.
if this renewal does not pass, how will this affect the village?
It will definitely have an effect. We're using most of this year's funding and a lot of next year's for the match for the Winton Road Phase 2 project, which will be a big one. Again, it's on Winton Road, and I guess at that point we really need to save most of our money for salt. And then we'll have to do some potholes, but if, I worry about the catch basins. You just never know what's going to pop up on the roads that we probably would not be able to address. We might not be able to, replenish our equipment. I think it could have a really bad effect.
And to give people an idea of the magnitude of the next project, what is Phase 2 for the Winton Road project?
That's from Farragut all the way to our South Corporation line down near Winton Woods.
So it's a larger curve.
Yes, it is. And we've had a problem at Cromwell, a storm sewer problem at Cromwell and Winton, and that's going to be addressed through this. In the catch basins, curbs, although there's not that much curbing, but yeah, that's a pretty big project.
When do they think they're going to start that?
Waterworks is actually going to do a portion first, and they will be starting that in early November and trying to wrap it up by mid-December. And then we will actually start our road portion in March and finish it by May.
And so if you travel on Winton Road, there'll be delays, no doubt, going through Greenhills. And then you get down into Springfield Township, and I understand they're going to have a project on Winton Road where there'll be delays in the November, December time period. Or actually, it's starting maybe the 1st of October or something.
The paving's underway. I think it starts this week.
Yeah.
In the more southern portion.
So, and one other thing, Greenhills was fortunate over the years to get a lot of our streets rebuilt through grants. So roughly almost half the village streets, we had received grants, state matching issue 2 funds, that sort of thing, to rebuild the streets, which was new curbs and resurfacing. And so some of those are in pretty good shape, but they're going to be needing to be resurfaced again in a few years. And then the rest of the village was rebuilt with a bond issue back in the 90s. And so almost everybody has had their curbs replaced or curbs added where there weren't curbs before in the town since the town was built. So in that area, we're in good shape. As she mentioned, as Yvonne mentioned, though, the catch basins are, some of them are 75 years old and need rebuilding.
Right. Is the village using any community development block grant money to address streets? I know we've got a 3-year funding cycle that's coming up, and people are starting to have hearings about how do we use that money. So is the village using some of their?
We aren't right now, but I believe in the past.
We have in the past, right? Yes. And even with those funds, I'm not sure what amount of money we're talking about this funding round. But for instance, Burley Circle, I think it was Burley, we had used community development block grant funds to redo that, and we were in the neighborhood of $180,000 of block grant funds. The last several years, we're probably in the $50,000 to $60,000 range in the amount of block grant funds we get. So the money there has decreased significantly from the 80s.
Right. And I guess the only other thing I'd ask about, I know that we talked a bit about the fact that SCIP money is helping to fund big projects in the village. We're fortunate that the bond issue passed again this year, so SCIP money will be available. Mm-hmm. What are the limitations to SCIP grants? You can't use them for your whole city, can you? I mean, otherwise, why would anybody spend their money? We just pay matching money and away we go.
Yeah, I do believe they have to be on a thoroughfare, and in fact, we're a state route.
Yeah, and they've changed some of the guidelines to be able to get the grants. So when they first instituted that, we were able to do a lot of village streets with SCIP or issue 2. That's what it originally was, and they had large governments and small government pools of money, and we lucked out in the pool that we were in. And my contact in Columbus at the time joked with me that after we had done several years of street work, saying, there can't be any more streets left in town that we haven't done. But he was not correct. But we got about 5 miles of streets with that funding back in the 80s, 90s.
Well, I know that a lot of governments are fond of saying the best way to pay for streets is with other people's money.
Yes.
But they are making that
Right.
harder. And again, it's a point system. So now the more money you are able to put in terms of match, the greater your chances of getting it. And in fact, they're making a lot of them loans now, which is going to be very difficult for many of us.
I was just going to say most of the ideas of the grants where I was going to ask, which we've kind of filled in, most of the grants are very difficult to get anyway, so it's probably a more uphill battle to try to find a grant that would be of benefit for the village.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm wondering if you were going to rely on grants, it would be really difficult to have any kind of strategic plan because you're kind of at the mercy of the people who award them, aren't you?
Mhm.
You kind of have to adapt to the rules and the point systems and, try to make it work.
And Yvonne's done a good job with that by what she's done on Winton Road for the project that we did. Was it last year? Resurfaced, or 2 years ago? And then this big one coming up now. And then we'll have one section of Winton Road left to do.
And there is a big pothole in that section, by the way. I'll just take that opportunity to let you know, because, we're going to try to have the vendor do that stretch, and that alone will probably take up, 1 year's allocation of $36,000. That would probably take up at least half of it, if not more, just to give you a feel for what that kind of thing would cost.
Well, believe it or not, we have almost reached the bottom of the hour, so I would make sure that everybody gets the opportunity to whomever would like to take a final statement about issue 23.
Well, I'll make a comment that, the streets have been near and dear to my heart, sort of. When I first came to the village back in the 70s, our streets were in pretty sad shape, and so this levy was one of the first things that I was able to get council to put on the ballot to generate funds for us on our streets. We improved our equipment, improved our streets, and I think the town's much better for it, and of course I'd like to see this continue so that we have good streets and a good service department for snow removal.
Okay, and I guess I would just say that I'd like to stress again that I think we make good use of our money in a lot of different ways. Service department does a great job with the resources that they're given, and I do just think we want to keep that up, most definitely.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank David and Yvonne for joining us. Of course, Jenny, thank you for joining me as well.
Glad to be here.
And of course, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. If you need more information about the candidates and issues that are affecting you, you can always direct yourself to the Hamilton County Board of Elections website. That's votehamiltoncounty.org. There you can get the up-to-the-minute information about candidates and issues, as well as watching any of our Waycross election forums. Remember, polls do open on November 4th at 6:30, so be prepared on that day. And now that we have presented the information to you, remember, it is your duty to vote responsibly on November 4th. Thank you.
Waycross takes no position on candidates or issues. We provide these forums so that our viewers may be better informed voters for the November 4th election.